As Horizon 1 thrived, external threats loomed ever closer. Alaya and Malik had known that their ideals might draw attention that was not always friendly. While they'd anticipated skepticism, even resistance, they had underestimated the lengths to which others might go to dismantle their vision. One early morning, Alaya woke to an eerie silence. The usual hum of Horizon 1's energy grid was gone, replaced by a stillness that settled over the city like a shroud. She hurried outside to find Malik already gathering residents in the central square. The energy grid was down, the irrigation systems were offline, and the food storage hubs sat in ominous darkness. Anna approached with a tense expression.
"It's more than a glitch,"
she said quietly.
"Someone has tampered with the main power grid, cutting our energy supply completely. Even the solar batteries are drained."
Malik's jaw tightened.
This wasn't an accident.
The extent of the damage became painfully clear within minutes. The power grid hadn't merely malfunctioned, it had been sabotaged. Water pipes had been slashed, and storage units containing Horizon 1's food reserves had been broken into, their contents scattered or destroyed. Alaya's stomach twisted as she surveyed the destruction. Someone had sought to cripple Horizon 1's most essential resources. Malik addressed the gathered crowd, his voice steady but edged with urgency.
We're under attack. There are those who see Horizon 1 as a threat. They want us to fail.
He paused, scanning the anxious faces.
But we won't let them succeed.
His words sparked a murmur of resolve through the crowd. Horizon 1 had faced hardship before. Its people weren't strangers to adversity. Still, the gravity of this sabotage, the deliberate targeting of their lifelines, left a shocked silence hanging in the air. Alaya could see the fear in the residents' eyes, a fear that mirrored her own. But beneath it, she saw something else, a fierce determination. Anna clenched her fists, her face set with resolve.
"So, what do we do now?"
We rebuild,
Malik said, his voice ringing with conviction.
We show them that we are stronger than their attempts to break us.
The following days were grueling. Malik and Alaya coordinated teams of volunteers who worked tirelessly to repair the damage. Together, they tackled the power grid, painstakingly reconnecting severed lines and recharging the solar batteries. In the vertical farms, they restored irrigation systems and salvaged as many crops as possible. Meanwhile, Jiro, an AI engineer, combed through data logs, looking for clues about the source of the attack. After several days of relentless work, Jiro pulled Malik and Alaya aside.
"Whoever did this was sophisticated,"
he said, shaking his head.
"They covered their tracks well, but we found something. A small transmitter hidden near the power grid. It's been broadcasting our energy readings to an outside source."
Malik's face darkened.
They've been monitoring us.
A chill ran down Alaya's spine. The transmitter was a direct violation of Horizon 1's autonomy, a reminder that those who feared their experiment would stop at nothing to see it fail. She exchanged a glance with Malik, her determination mingling with dread.
We need to close any remaining vulnerabilities,
Malik said.
Fortify our defenses against future threats.
New security measures followed. They installed motion sensors and alarms around critical areas of the city's infrastructure. Jiro upgraded the surveillance system, creating a closed network that could detect attempts to breach it. Horizon 1's perimeter was reinforced, and a 24-hour watch was established, with residents volunteering in shifts to protect their home. Despite these precautions, tension continued to build. The attack had unsettled their sense of safety, planting seeds of suspicion and fear. Some residents began to wonder if the attack had come from within, sparking quiet doubts about each other's loyalty. One evening, during a community meeting, Lyle, a former construction worker with deep misgivings about Horizon 1's AI systems, stood up, his voice tinged with suspicion.
"Now, how do we know this was an outside attack?"
he asked, scanning the room.
"We've put all our trust into this surveillance system. Who's to say that someone on the inside didn't sabotage us?"
The room fell silent, the weight of his accusations settling heavily. Alaya felt the residents' eyes shifting, glances exchanged in quiet suspicion. She knew that if they allowed mistrust to take root, it could unravel everything they'd built. Malik stepped forward, meeting Lyle's gaze with calm resolve.
I understand your fears, Lyle, but this attack was calculated, designed to make Horizon 1 fail. The last thing we need is to turn against each other. Trust is the foundation of this city, and without it, we have nothing.
Alaya stepped beside him, adding,
Whoever did this wants us divided, wants us questioning each other. We can't let them succeed.
The room stayed silent as Malik's and Alaya's words settled in. Slowly, the tension eased, and the murmurs of fear faded as residents exchanged nods of understanding. But Alaya knew the vulnerability lingered. Their unity had been tested as never before. Determined to prevent future attacks, Malik and Alaya turned their attention to further securing Horizon 1's infrastructure. They upgraded the power grid, integrating it with an emergency backup designed to activate during future crises. They established a communication network to alert residents quickly in times of need, with emergency meeting points designated around the city. Physical barriers went up around the power grid and vertical farms, serving as both a deterrent and a reminder of the constant threats they faced. These upgrades were practical but also symbolic, a testament to the resilience required to carry their vision forward. One afternoon, as Malik and Alaya inspected the new barriers, she noticed the tension in his shoulders, the weariness etched in his gaze. She knew he felt the weight of this responsibility, the burden of protecting the city he'd worked so hard to build.
Malik,
She said quietly, touching his arm.
we're doing everything we can. The people here believe in what we're building because of you. Don't lose sight of that.
He gave her a small, grateful smile, though doubt lingered in his eyes.
Sometimes I wonder,
He admitted.
if we're putting them in harm's way by daring to imagine something different.
Alaya shook her head firmly.
They're here because they believe in that vision too. And they're willing to fight for it just like we are.
Malik nodded, his resolve hardening.
Then we keep going.
Their resolve was soon tested. Late one night, as Alaya made her rounds near the vertical farms, she heard a faint rustling in the shadows. She paused, her senses on high alert. The security lights flickered, casting eerie shadows over the rows of crops. She moved cautiously, her pulse quickening as she scanned the area. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness, darting toward the irrigation lines with something sharp in hand.
Hey!
Alaya shouted, charging forward. The figure froze, then bolted toward the perimeter, dropping the tool they'd been holding. She sprinted after them, adrenaline surging as she closed the distance. Just as she was about to catch up, Malik appeared, blocking the intruder's path. The figure twisted sharply, dodging around him, but not before Malik grabbed their arm. A brief struggle ensued, and the intruder broke free, disappearing into the night. Alaya and Malik stood together, catching their breath, their eyes locked in a silent mixture of relief and tension.
Are you all right?
He asked, concern etched on his face. She nodded, pulse still racing.
That was too close.
They returned to the community center, alerting the residents to the breach attempt. The community, though shaken, felt a renewed sense of unity after witnessing Malik and Alaya's determination to protect Horizon 1. Volunteers stepped forward for additional patrols, their resolve strengthening in the face of adversity. In the wake of the attack, Alaya was faced with a difficult decision. She received word that a relative she'd once been close to, someone who had been a steady presence in her life, had fallen seriously ill. As she weighed the news, she felt a pull to be with her family, but also a deep sense of responsibility to Horizon 1. Malik noticed her quiet struggle.
If you need to go, we'll understand.
He said gently.
Family is important, Alaya.
She sighed, torn.
But there's so much to manage here, especially now. I don't want to leave, not when things are so uncertain.
Malik placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder.
You've built something that can hold steady without you for a little while. Go if you need to. We'll keep things moving here.
After a long, thoughtful night, Alaya made her choice. She decided to stay, finding comfort in knowing her family understood her commitment to Horizon 1 and pride in realizing how much it relied on her leadership. This decision deepened her connection to the city and strengthened her resolve to protect its future, no matter the challenges ahead. Over the following months, Horizon 1 fortified itself. The barriers and systems became permanent fixtures, a testament to the resilience of a community adapting to threats. Residents adjusted, the heightened security becoming part of daily life. During a community meeting, Malik addressed the crowd, his voice resonant with quiet pride.
We've been tested,
He said,
and we've come through stronger. Horizon 1 is more than a place. It's a vision of what humanity can achieve together. Every time we stand united against fear, we bring that vision closer.
Alaya looked around, seeing the resolve in the faces of the people she had come to know so well. They were more than just residents. They were family, bound by shared purpose, sacrifices, and triumphs. As Malik finished speaking, the crowd erupted in applause, a palpable sense of unity filling the air. Alaya felt a deep, abiding fulfillment, a certainty that despite the obstacles, Horizon 1 was on the path to something extraordinary. Together, they had built a future fortified by unity, a future where fear could not break them, and where the dream of a better world would continue to grow. As Horizon 1 continued to grow, the bonds that held the community together were tested in ways that Alaya and Malik had not foreseen. The city had weathered external attacks and sabotage, but now a subtler challenge emerged from within. Whispered doubts, murmurs of discontent, and the quiet stirrings of old fears began to spread, threatening to unravel the unity that had been the foundation of Horizon 1. It all began when a resident named Devon was found hoarding supplies. Devon had been part of Horizon 1 from the start, a hard worker with a quiet demeanor, someone who had rarely drawn attention to himself. But now he had become the center of a storm that threatened to shake the community's trust. Alaya and Malik met with him in a small, dimly lit room in the community center, their faces etched with disappointment and concern. Devon sat across from them, his shoulders slumped, his gaze fixed on the floor.
Why, Devon?
Malik's voice was steady but pained.
You've been with us from the beginning. You know we have enough for everyone.
Devon looked up, his expression a mix of shame and defiance.
I know you mean well, Malik,
He began, his voice faltering.
but it's not that simple for me. You see, I grew up with nothing. My family barely scraped by. I watched my mother go hungry so I could eat. I learned young that if I didn't hold on to what little we had, we wouldn't survive.
His words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of his past. Alaya's heart softened as she listened, understanding the scars that Devon carried, scars that couldn't be healed overnight.
This isn't about mistrusting you or Horizon 1.
Devon continued, his voice rough with emotion.
It's a habit, a survival instinct I can't just turn off. I thought maybe if I just kept a little extra, just in case.
Malik's gaze softened, and he nodded slowly.
Devon, I understand. I think we all do to some degree. But if we're going to make Horizon 1 work, we have to let go of that fear. We have to believe in abundance, in the trust we're building here.
Devon swallowed, his shoulders sagging as he absorbed Malik's words.
I don't want to undermine this place.
He said quietly.
I don't know how to trust that easily.
Alaya placed a gentle hand on his arm, her voice filled with empathy.
Devon, you're not alone in feeling that way. Many of us came here with fears and doubts. It's part of the journey. But we can only build this future together if we start to let go of those obsolete survival behavioral patterns.
Though Malik and Alaya hoped to resolve the issue quietly, word of Devon's hoarding spread quickly. The residents of Horizon 1, already shaken by recent sabotage, became wary. Quiet conversations began to crop up in the communal spaces and dining halls, whispers of mistrust that threatened to corrode the fragile unity they had worked so hard to build. One evening, as Alaya made her rounds, she overheard two residents talking in hushed tones.
It's just strange, don't you think?
one of them whispered.
If Devon's been hiding supplies, who's to say others aren't doing the same?
The other resident, a young woman named Tessa, nodded, her face etched with concern.
And what if this hoarding spreads? I thought we were here to trust each other. But now...
Alaya's chest tightened as she listened, understanding the impact of Devon's actions more deeply. Horizon One's strength had always come from trust, from the belief that there was enough for everyone. Without that, their vision would falter, reduced to the same fears and divisions they had left behind. That evening, Alaya met with Malik to discuss the growing unease within the community.
We need to address this openly,
She said, her voice firm.
If we don't, the mistrust will fester.
Malik nodded, his expression resolute.
Then we'll hold a meeting. Everyone deserves the chance to speak, to voice their concerns.
The following evening, Malik and Alaya called a meeting in the community center. The residents filed in slowly, their faces marked by uncertainty and quiet tension. Malik stood at the front, waiting for the crowd to settle before he began.
Many of you have heard about the recent issue with Devon,
He said, his voice steady but gentle.
Devon has struggled with letting go of old habits, as many of us have. And he's not alone. We all carry fears from our past, fears that make it difficult to trust fully in what we're building here.
A murmur ran through the crowd, a ripple of understanding mixed with unease. Malik took a deep breath, his gaze sweeping over the faces before him.
This community is built on trust, on the belief that we are stronger together than we are alone. If we allow ourselves to give in to fear, to question each other's motives, then we undermine everything we've worked for.
Alaya stepped forward, her voice filled with quiet conviction.
We are all here because we believe in a better way of living. That doesn't mean it's easy. It takes courage to let go of the survival behavioral patterns we've relied on for so long. But if we don't try, we're only holding ourselves back.
Devon, who had been sitting quietly at the back, rose to his feet. He looked around the room, his expression one of vulnerability and remorse.
I'm sorry.
He said, his voice barely more than a whisper.
I let my fear get the best of me. I know now that what I did was wrong, that it was selfish. I didn't want to go back to that life, to feeling like I had nothing.
His voice trembled, and he lowered his gaze, his shame palpable. Malik stepped over to him, placing a hand on his shoulder.
Devon, we understand. And it's okay to be afraid, but you're part of this community. You don't have to carry that fear alone.
The tension in the room eased as Devon's words sank in, as the residents saw his regret, his willingness to acknowledge his mistake. Slowly, one by one, people began to speak, sharing their own struggles, their fears, their doubts. The honesty was raw, unfiltered, and Alaya felt a surge of pride as she listened, a deep sense of gratitude for the strength of the people who had chosen to call Horizon One home. In the days that followed, a quiet transformation began to take place within Horizon One. The community meetings had opened up a space for vulnerability, for people to express the fears they had long hidden. Malik and Alaya encouraged these conversations, inviting residents to continue sharing, to lean on each other for support. One afternoon, Alaya noticed Lyle sitting alone by the edge of the vertical farms, his gaze distant. She approached him, taking a seat beside him, and after a moment he spoke.
I've been thinking a lot about Devon,
Lyle admitted, his voice rough with emotion.
I used to think people like him were just weak, clinging to things because they couldn't see the bigger picture. But now, I get it. It's hard to let go of what you know, of the things that made you feel safe.
Alaya placed a hand on his arm, a soft smile on her face.
We're all learning, Lyle. None of us came here perfect or unscarred. We each have our own struggles, our own fears to overcome.
Lyle nodded, his expression softening.
It's just harder than I thought it would be.
I know,
She replied gently.
but that's what makes it worthwhile. Every time we let go of that fear, we're choosing to build something stronger.
As the weeks passed, Horizon One's community found a new strength in their shared vulnerability. The openness of their conversations, the willingness to confront their fears, had deepened their bond, turning moments of doubt into opportunities for growth. One evening, as Malik and Alaya walked through the city, they paused to watch as residents gathered in small groups, sharing stories, laughter, and a quiet sense of unity. The air was filled with a palpable warmth, a sense of belonging that reminded Alaya of why she had joined this journey.
They're stronger now,
Malik said, a note of pride in his voice.
They face their fears and come through together.
Alaya nodded, her heart swelling with pride.
Yes, and I think we're just beginning to see what they're capable of.
As they stood together, watching the city they had built blossom with resilience, Alaya felt a quiet, unshakable certainty settle within her. Horizon One had survived sabotage, mistrust, and the lingering shadows of the past, and each time they had emerged stronger, their bonds deeper, their vision clearer. For the first time in weeks, Alaya allowed herself to feel a flicker of hope, a belief that no matter the challenges they faced, Horizon One was here to stay. In the days that followed, Alaya and Malik turned their focus to the future. They reached out to nearby cities, sharing Horizon One's model, offering guidance to those who wanted to create their own communities built on trust and abundance. Word spread quickly, and soon inquiries began pouring in. Cities, towns, and communities, each one eager to learn, to believe in the possibility of a world without fear. Alaya felt a surge of excitement as she looked out over Horizon One, a city that had once been little more than an idea, a fragile dream. Now it was a thriving, resilient community, a beacon of hope for a world in desperate need of change. And as the sun set over the city, casting a warm golden light over the buildings, the gardens, the faces of the people she had come to love, Alaya knew that this was only the beginning. Horizon One was more than a city. It was a movement, a promise, a vision of a better world. And together they would protect it, nurture it, and watch it grow, no matter what lay ahead. The pressure on Horizon One had grown exponentially. No longer just a curiosity or a hopeful experiment, the city was now a point of global contention, a rallying cry for change, but also a target for fierce opposition. Governments eyed it with suspicion, wary of its autonomy, while powerful corporations, fearful of a world without reliance on their products, launched a smear campaign to discredit the city's achievements. Malik and Alaya felt the weight of these forces pressing down on them daily. The city's existence was proof that humanity could live without scarcity or competition, and that notion alone challenged the power structures that defined the world outside. To its supporters, Horizon One was a miracle. To its detractors, it was a dangerous dream. In the face of the growing tension, Horizon One's residents found themselves grappling with a familiar and pervasive foe: fear. For some, the fear was rooted in personal survival. For others, it was fear of the unknown. Alaya could sense it as she walked through the community, catching glimpses of uncertainty in the residents' eyes, the way some clung to small routines as a means of finding stability. She felt the weight of it herself, the scrutiny, the smear campaigns, the whispered doubts. It was all beginning to seep into her spirit, stirring up questions she thought she had already answered. One evening, after a long day of meetings and planning, Alaya found Malik alone on the rooftop of the community center, staring out at the horizon. She approached quietly, taking a seat beside him. For a while, they sat in silence, watching the city lights flicker against the darkening sky. Malik's usual calm seemed strained, his shoulders tense, his gaze distant. Finally, he broke the silence, his voice low.
Sometimes I wonder if we're asking too much of people. If maybe our ideals are pushing for change before people are ready.
The words caught Alaya off guard. She had always relied on Malik's strength, his unwavering commitment. But now she saw a flicker of doubt in his eyes, a vulnerability he rarely showed.
What do you mean?
She asked gently, her gaze steady. Malik sighed, running a hand through his hair.
We're asking people to let go of everything they've ever known, to believe that there's enough for everyone, that they don't need to compete just to survive. But trust isn't easy, especially for those who've lived in a world where survival was a fight.
Alaya nodded, feeling the weight of his words. She thought of Lyle, once clinging fiercely to his belongings, now sharing openly with others. She thought of Anna, who had come here wary and guarded, now a pillar of strength in the community.
But isn't that why we're here, Malik? To show people there's another way, that they don't have to live in fear or isolation.
He looked at her, his expression conflicted.
But what if we're wrong? What if people can't let go of old habits, old fears? What if we're just setting them up for disappointment?
Alaya took a deep breath.
We might be asking a lot, but isn't that what makes this worth it? People need something to believe in, something to work toward. If we don't push forward now, what message are we sending? That they should just accept fear and scarcity as inevitable.
Malik fell silent, his gaze returning to the city below. She could feel the weight of his thoughts, the depth of his inner struggle. She knew that for him, this was not just a question of ideals, it was a question of legacy, of the world he hoped to leave behind. After a moment, she placed a gentle hand on his shoulder.
We're not alone in this, Malik. One person at a time, we're showing that change is possible. It's slow, maybe harder than we thought, but it's real. And as long as we keep believing, so will they.
Malik's expression softened, a glimmer of resolve returning to his eyes. He nodded, a small but genuine smile tugging at the corners of his mouth.
Maybe you're right, Alaya. Maybe that's all we need, for now.
The next day, as Alaya made her rounds through the vertical farms, she found Anna carefully tending to a row of tomato plants. There was a quiet resilience in Anna's calm movements, an unhurried grace that struck Alaya deeply. Anna noticed her approach and offered a warm smile.
I heard about the latest round of press coverage.
She said lightly, though there was a note of concern in her voice.
They're calling us a fragile utopia.
Alaya chuckled softly.
Yes, they seem determined to convince the world that we're too good to be true.
Anna nodded thoughtfully.
But maybe it's that very possibility that unsettles them. People aren't used to the idea that there could actually be enough for everyone.
She paused, her gaze dropping to the plants she was nurturing.
When I first came here, I didn't believe it either. I thought I'd be gone in a month. That this would be a phase, a nice idea that couldn't last. But I've seen what's possible. I know this works, even if the rest of the world can't see it yet.
She looked up, her expression softening as a memory surfaced.
There was a day,
She began quietly.
when I was ready to leave. It was after my first week here. I didn't think this was going to work. But then I watched Malik and Jiro give up their own portions of water during a shortage. They didn't even hesitate. They just wanted to make sure everyone else had enough. That small gesture made me realize this was real, that people here truly cared. That's when I decided to stay. It's not always easy, but I know now that this isn't just a dream. It's worth every struggle.
Alaya felt a deep gratitude swell within her as she listened, Anna's words easing the weight of her own doubts. This was why Horizon 1 existed, each life transformed, each moment of quiet sacrifice. She knew the world was watching, and that people like Anna were living proof that meaningful change wasn't only possible, it was essential.
Thank you, Anna.
Alaya said softly, her voice filled with emotion.
Hearing you say that, it means more than you know.
Anna simply smiled, returning to her work, the air around them filled with the steady, peaceful rhythm of growth, each plant a testament to the hope they had planted together. Later that evening, Malik and Alaya met again, this time in his office. Malik had spent the day reflecting, and Alaya could see a renewed sense of purpose in his eyes.
I've been thinking about what you said last night,
He began, his tone steady.
about why we can't back down. And you're right. We're here to challenge the status quo to show people that another world is possible.
Alaya felt a wave of relief, a renewed sense of strength in Malik's conviction.
I never doubted it, Malik. And I don't think the people here doubt it either. Not anymore.
He nodded, a faint smile tugging at his lips.
So we press on. No matter the backlash, no matter the resistance, we keep going. Because Horizon 1 is more than just an idea. It's a reality that's already changing lives.
Alaya felt a swell of pride as she looked at him, grateful for his strength, his vision, his willingness to push forward in the face of doubt. She knew that Horizon 1 was more than just a city, it was a movement, a symbol of hope for a world that had forgotten how to believe. The next community meeting was charged with a palpable energy, a unity that had only grown stronger despite, or perhaps because of, the challenges they faced. Malik and Alaya stood before the gathered residents, their voices filled with conviction as they reflected on the journey they had all undertaken together.
We're not here to be perfect,
Malik said, his voice unwavering as he addressed the crowd.
We're here to build something real, something that will stand the test of time. And yes, that means we'll face doubt, fear, even failure. But that doesn't mean we stop. It means we keep going, because what we're building here is worth every struggle, every sacrifice.
A wave of applause erupted, resonating through the hall as faces lit with pride, hope, and determination. Alaya felt a surge of gratitude as she looked over the crowd. The people who had become her family, each one a vital part of the world they were creating. After the meeting, Lyle approached Malik and Alaya, his expression softened by a quiet, renewed faith. Once one of Horizon 1's most vocal skeptics, he had struggled to accept the concept of shared resources, unsure if a life without ownership could ever be sustainable. But now, as he looked at them, there was a new light in his eyes, a genuine conviction.
I used to think this was a pipe dream,
He admitted, his voice rough with emotion.
but I've seen what we've built. I've seen people come together, how we all have what we need without taking from each other. And I believe in it now. I really do.
As he spoke, a memory flashed in his mind, a moment when Priya, a fellow resident, had offered him a portion of her meal during a supply shortage. Her gesture had been given freely, without expectation, and it had stayed with him, unsettling everything he thought he knew about survival. He realized that here in Horizon 1, people weren't driven by the fear of loss, but by the commitment to ensure everyone had enough. It had been a slow revelation, but moments like that had shifted his perspective, showing him the true strength of this community. Now he wasn't just agreeing with an ideal, he was living proof that it worked. Malik placed a hand on Lyle's shoulder, his gaze steady and warm.
Thank you, Lyle. That means more than you know.
Alaya watched, her heart swelling with pride. This wasn't just about Lyle's journey, it was a testament to the power of Horizon 1, a world where kindness and mutual support could dissolve even the deepest doubts. In that moment, she felt the weight of all they had built and knew, more clearly than ever, that they were on the right path. As the sun set over Horizon 1, casting a warm golden light over the city, Alaya and Malik stood together, their hearts filled with a sense of peace, a quiet certainty that they were on the right path. They knew that the road ahead would be difficult, that there would be more resistance, more doubt. But they also knew that they were creating something extraordinary, something that had the power to change the world. Horizon 1 was not just a city, it was a testament to the strength of the human spirit, a promise of a future where people could live without fear, without competition, without scarcity. And as they looked out over the city they had built together, Alaya felt a quiet, unshakable belief settle within her, a belief that no matter the challenges they faced, Horizon 1 would endure. They were building a new world, one that would inspire generations to come, and together they would protect it, nurture it, and watch it grow, no matter what lay ahead.